While President Joe Biden ran on holding Saudi Arabia accountable for the slaughter, the murder of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, the White House has actually released a statement indicating that it condemns any congressional effort that would block weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. Now, before we get to the details of what that statement indicated, I just want to give you guys a little reminder of what campaign Biden looked like. Let's watch.
Khashoggi was in fact murdered and dismembered, and I believe in the order of the Crown Prince. And I would make it very clear, we were not going to in fact sell more weapons to them. We were going to in fact make them pay the price and make them in fact the pariah that they are.
Look at that, tough Biden, make them the pariah that they are. He's gonna hold them accountable for what they did to Khashoggi. That's why he ordered a study to make sure that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was in fact the one who ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. And once he ordered that study and once it was confirmed, he did absolutely nothing about it. Tough guy. Did he actually make the Saudis pariahs? No, he did not do that. In fact, the White House, again, condemns any effort to block weapons sales, United States weapons sales to Saudi Arabia, which then get used in the war in Yemen, which we'll get to the details and the hideous nature of that war in just a second. But let me give you some more in regard to the statement coming from the White House. The administration, the statement reads, strongly opposes passage of SJ Resolution 31, a joint resolution prohibiting a proposed US foreign military sales case to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia of defense articles, including 280 advanced medium range air-to-air missiles and related articles and services. So again, these weapons are being used for a brutal war in Yemen, which, by the way, the United States has been helping Saudi Arabia carry out. But the White House pretends as though it's in favor, this is the best part, that they're in favor of approaching that conflict in Yemen in a diplomatic way. I mean, their version of diplomacy is selling weapons to the aggressor, Saudi Arabia. That is apparently the White House's idea of diplomacy. And they also included this following statement in the exact memo. The US foreign military sales case at issue is fully consistent with the administration's pledge to lead with, I mean, you can't make it up, to lead with diplomacy to end the conflict in Yemen and end US support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen. How do you end the war in Yemen? By giving Saudi Arabia weapons, by selling weapons to them. That doesn't end war. That exacerbates it, and they know it, they know it. The fact that that's the second paragraph in their statement, they just brazenly lie to you and get away with it. It's incredible. While also ensuring that Saudi Arabia has the means to defend itself from Iranian-backed Houthi air attacks. Oh, you mean the Saudi Arabia that is intentionally holding back oil production to ensure that gas prices spike so they can profit as much as humanly possible? That's Saudi Arabia? The Saudi Arabia that gave Biden the middle finger when Biden's like, hey, can you guys produce more oil, please? That's Saudi Arabia? Pathetic. Oil-rich country needs the United States to help them defend themselves from who? I mean, it is unbelievable. Now, as we know, Biden's approval ratings, not good, very bad. Very bad. People are saying that Biden is not popular. Neither is Kamala Harris. And I would argue that maybe all those broken promises tend to hurt politicians. They think Americans aren't paying attention, but I don't know, I'd venture to say that they are. Especially when you see the feelings of the Democratic base reflected in these low approval ratings. Now, the data for Progress also found a pretty strong majority of people who are against the weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. Let's take a quick look at this graph that gives you a sense of just how widespread the lack of support for this $650 million US arms sales to Saudi Arabia really is. All likely voters, 64% of them oppose. You look at Democrats, 63% of them oppose the weapons sale. 64% of independents oppose the weapons sale. And even Republicans, 64% oppose the weapons sale. But the White House, unfortunately, got exactly what it wanted, despite efforts by some lawmakers to block the sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia. The Senate decided to vote in favor of going ahead with this. Okay, going ahead with the weapons sale. So let me give you the context. There was legislation proposed by a bipartisan group of senators. Bernie Sanders is included in that. You've got Rand Paul included in this effort. You have Mike Lee included in this effort. But it didn't matter. Senate resoundingly defeats effort to block Saudi arms sale, 30-67. The vote split the Democratic caucus, but the vast majority of Republicans backed the Biden administration's proposed sale. I mean, look, the GOP is gonna GOP, right? Republicans, of course, are like, yeah, let's sell the weapons. Historically, that's where they've been. But Democrats try to present themselves as something completely different when they're running their campaigns. They pretend as if they're different from the Republican Party. But the infusion of corporate cash in campaigns really does lead to a huge portion of the Democratic Party looking a lot like the Republican Party, especially when it comes to bread and butter issues, when it comes to defense issues, national security issues, whatever. Anything that actually has an impact on redistribution of wealth from the bottom to the top. That's where you see corporate Democrats in cahoots with Republicans, even if they campaign as something different. So why does this happen? Why does this redistribution of wealth from the bottom to the top happen? Why is it that the majority of Americans, both Democrats and Republicans, are not in favor of this weapons sale to Saudi Arabia, yet Congress still moves forward with it? Why? Let's look at the money. In the past 2 decades, for instance, according to Open Secrets, defense contractors and their extensive network of lobbyists and donors have directed $285 million in campaign contributions and $2.5 billion in lobbying spending to influence defense policy. That's just in 2 decades. To further these goals, they hired more than 200 lobbyists who have worked in the same government that regulates and decides funding for their industry. Oh, it's interesting that they should mention that. I remember when Joe Biden was appointing people to his cabinet, and I raised alarm in regard to how many of those people had very cozy ties to corporate interests. In the case of the Defense Department, the Secretary of State, I was concerned with the person he chose because that individual had incredibly close ties to the private defense contractors who do quite a bit of lobbying to ensure that they fill their pockets. They get to sell their weapons to countries that might end up being a huge problem to our national security in the future. So here's a few examples of the goons I'm talking about. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken consulted for a private equity firm that emphasized its access, network, and expertise in the defense industry. Austin also had a seat at the United Technologies and Raytheon board, earning more than $250,000 from the now merged companies. And of course, when you look at Saudi Arabia specifically, Saudi Arabia benefits from the influence wielded by major US arms manufacturers that would like to sell to them. Just 4 of the biggest companies received 90% of promised sales between 2009 and 2019. Those 4, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and Boeing, happen to make up 4 of the top 5 defense-related companies spending the most on lobbying, pouring over $10 million each into their policy influence efforts in 2020 alone. Listen, there are very few politicians who are principled. There are very few politicians who do the right thing. One of those politicians has consistently been Senator Bernie Sanders, and he explains perfectly in this next video why arming Saudi Arabia and allowing Saudi Arabia to use our weapons in the war in Yemen is so disastrous. Let's watch.
We should be demanding that they end the devastating war in Yemen, which has killed over 230,000 people in one of the very poorest countries on earth. For more than 6 years, the Saudi-led military intervention in Yemen's civil war has been a key driver of the largest humanitarian disaster in the world, the largest. According to UNICEF, 4 out of every 5 children in Yemen needs humanitarian assistance. That is over 11 million children. 400,000 children suffer from severe malnutrition. 1.7 million children have been displaced from their homes by violence from this war. And some 15 million people, more than half of whom are children, do not have access to safe water, sanitation, or hygiene.
So let's be clear about something. When the Republican Party claims that they care about babies, they care about human lives in the context of ending reproductive rights in America, just understand that they don't stand for a damn thing. They certainly do not stand for protecting human lives, because they just voted to allow for weapons to be sold to Saudi Arabia to continue that brutality against the Yemeni people, including Yemeni children. That's the fact of the matter. I would love the media to connect those two dots, but they never do.
Hey everyone, as you all know, coronavirus has been pretty devastating for people's personal finances. The inaction in Congress, or the very little relief that was provided by Congress, unfortunately didn't do much to help small businesses that were really hurt by being forced to shut down in order to slow the spread of coronavirus. There are 100,000 small businesses that have been closed since the pandemic began. Some of you might feel helpless, but luckily there's this wonderful initiative known as the COVID Rescue Fund. So all you need to do is go to covidrescuefund.org and you'll learn more about how you can donate or how you can vote and promote your favorite small business. And really the whole point here is to offer generous grants to help these small businesses. The COVID Rescue Fund crowdsources up to $100,000 for each individual grant. So we're not talking about a small amount of money. You know, I've seen small businesses in my community shut down, and these are small businesses where I had relationships with the owners, and to watch them lose everything that they've worked so hard for has been absolutely heartbreaking. I really wanted to do something then, and I'm happy to see that there's an initiative that could help people get involved now. Go to covidrescuefund.org and donate. Let's come together and bring back as many small businesses as possible.